documents here. One is a bill introduced in the UK, House of Parliament, introduced last summer. It's currently going to the second reading with a date to be announced. This relates to minimum distance between wind turbines and residential premises according to the size of the wind turbine. And the bill proposes if the height of the wind turbine generator is greater than 100 meters but does not exceed 150 meters, the minimum distance requirement of 2,000 meters. And that is a bill. It's not law, but it's the UK government. I have a document here. I have two documents related to sound, as we were discussing. One is called An Investigation into Wind Farms and Noise by the United Kingdom Noise Association. It's a very long document. The summary of the document. First, I'll read what it says about facts about noise. Noise can be defined as unwanted sound. Noise levels are normally expressed in dB, decibels. A 1 decibel change in the noise level is just perceptible. A 3 decibel change is clearly perceptible, while a 10 decibel change is heard as a doubling or halving of the perceived level. Noise levels are usually measured in A weight. Sometimes noise is averaged out over a period of time to give a reading dBA, LAEQ. A weighting is the subject of some controversy. Some acousticians argue that C-weighted measurements should be taken in addition to capture low-frequency noise. In addition to the decibel level, measuring loudness, the frequency of noise is measured in terms of hertz. Frequency is to do with the pitch of the noise rather than its loudness. It is the combination of the pitch and the loudness that determines what people hear. It can also have a bearing on a person's health. And then the overall recommendations of this study are as follows. It would be prudent that no wind turbine should be sited closer than 1 mile from the nearest dwelling. This is the distance the Academy of Medicine in Paris is recommending, certainly for the larger turbines and until further studies are carried out. There may even be occasions where a mile is insufficient, depending on the scale and nature of the proposed development. Wind farms should only be located in areas where the swish of the turbines will not cause noise problems for people. There needs to be clear and public recognition by the industry that wind turbines are causing significant noise problems for some people. This could open the door for constructive discussion. The industry also should recognize that the evidence is pervasive that the noise problem can be exacerbated by the rotating blades and the dancing shadows of the turbines. The official government guidelines for the siting of turbines needs to be revised to take into account the more intrusive nature of the noise in areas where the overall background noise level is low. The debate on wind farms would do well to recognize that infrasound content of turbine noise is too low for most people to hear, and hear is italicized. People need to be careful not to exaggerate the audibility of the low frequency of the noise. It can be a problem at times, but overemphasis on it can detract from the main noise problem, which is the swish, 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 swish of the blades. The guidelines should require the use of C weighting and G weighting for infrasound, as well as A weighting when measuring the noise from turbines in order to fully capture the low frequency element. Further work needs to be undertaken urgency to test the claims that the overall effect of turbines is having a physical effect on people to the detriment of their health. There should be a, let's see here, okay, that's not relevant. Concluding comment, wind farms can play a role in reducing global emissions, but there is a very real danger that in the enthusiasm to embrace clean technology, legitimate concerns about noise are being brushed aside. There is no doubt that some existing wind farms are causing real noise problems. This report has stopped short of arguing that those turbines should be shut down, though that possibility should not be ruled out. However, it would be quite unacceptable to our citizens for this situation to be replicated in other parts of the country as new turbines come on. But this need not be the case. The positive conclusions of this report is there is a constructive way forward. It simply requires sensible siting to the new wind farms. It's all about location. So that's the overall conclusion of this report. I have another report. This is by, this one's called The How-To Guide to Siting Turbines to Prevent Health Risks from Sound, by George Camperman and Richard James. It's quite lengthy. The summary, recommendations for community noise levels. They give different examples based on rural, suburban, urban, or urban mixed. The rural recommendations, daytime 35 dB, evening between 7 and 11, 30 dB, nighttime limit 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., 25 dB. That's just a basic short summary of that. Some examples I was able to pull from different countries overseas. Denmark, windmills must be situated at a minimum distance of 4 times their height away from habitation. If the windmill is erected closer than 6 times its height, and estimation is carried out free of charge regarding the depreciation of property value. If the loss is more than 1%, full compensation of the loss in property value is paid out. If the property is situated farther away than 6 times the height of the windmill, 4,000 Dutch kronen is payable to have an evaluation of the loss in value carried out. If it is estimated that the depreciation is more than 1%, the loss in value of the property is paid out, and the 4,000 is reimbursed. If it's estimated that there is no loss in value of property, the 4,000 is forfeited. Owners of windmills have to pay the compensation. France, on a case-by-case basis, only limited by noise legislation. The French Academy of Medicine recommends 1,500 meters, which is 4,921 feet. Germany, different setbacks according to noise level protection of the area. Quiet regions, 35 dBA, which they put at 1,000 to 1,500 meters. Middle regions, which is not defined, 40 dBA, which is 600 to 1,000 meters, and standard regions, 45 dBA. Northern Ireland, best practice guide to planning policy, statement 18, renewable energy, August of 2009 states, as a matter of best practice for wind farm development, the Department of Environment will generally apply a separation distance of 10 times rotor diameter to occupied property with a minimum distance of not less than 500 meters. This is proposed wind farm regulations from northeast Wisconsin, Brown County. Senator Frank Lassie, and this is dated April 15th of this year, Senator Frank Lassie introduced legislation that would require developers to keep turbines at least 2,250 feet from a person's property unless there's permission to build closer. Earlier in the year, the governor said he wanted to change the law to 1,800 feet. Senator Lassie says that's not enough. 2,050 feet is a reasonable distance that will help preserve the health and safety because of shadow, flicker, noise, and either magnetic or electric noise that's causing health problems for people. And then this goes on with personal experiences of people visiting a residence that had 8 turbines near their home. I have a document here that relates to ice throw in colder climates. This is from GE Energy. And the summary of this document says that a wind turbine to be a safe distance regarding ice throw should be the hub height plus the rotor diameter times 1.5. In this case here, that puts it approximately 1,000 feet from roads, homes,
railroad tracks, power lines, all that
anywhere
stuff.
people might go.
I got that same one. So, all right.
I'll just give those to us.
And then I got to here, make this quick as I can. I know I'm long-winded. This is from the American Wind Energy Siting Handbook. Shadow flicker typically occurs only at times and locations of low sun angles. This is most common just after sunrise and just before sunset. It is in relatively higher altitudes, more northerly areas in the southern and northern hemisphere. Shadow flicker does not occur when the sun is obscured by clouds or fog, or when the wind turbines are not operating, or when the blades are at a 90-degree angle to the receptor. While shadow flicker can be perceived outdoors, it tends to be more noticeable in rooms with windows oriented to the shadows. A wind turbine shadow flicker impact area does not generally extend beyond 2 kilometers, which is 1.1 mile. And high impacts greater than 200 hours per year are generally located approximately 300 meters, which is about 1,000 feet, of the turbine. And shadow flicker typically lasts less than 20 minutes. So that basically, that's what that says on this from the American Wind Energy. Thus, this analysis often requires an early identification of locations of all residents and other sensitive receptors within their project vicinities. If shadow mitigation, under their mitigation part, if shadow flicker impacts are unavoidable through site selection, the developer may work closely with landowners or other receptors to come to an agreement on other potential mitigation measures specific to the project. And then we go into sound by the American Wind Energy Association. And it is, however, it's distinct from such sounds that it can occur as a pulses corresponding to the passage of a turbine. This is in reference to wind turbines. Turbine's blade as the rotor turns. It tends to be more noticeable in the middle range of the turbine operating wind speeds, when the masking sounds of the wind are not at their highest level. Some turbines also emit tonal sounds caused by mechanical components. While tonal sounds may not result in higher overall level of sound emissions, in terms of loudness, they are noticeable. Most states and localities establish noise limits at the property boundaries based on specific sound pressure levels in decibels. While such computer models are useful and often reflective conservative assumptions, they may not be able to account for all nuances of particular situation. For example, they may not take into account differences in upwind and downwind propagation. Rather, some form of downwind propagation in all directions may be presumed. They may or may not be programmed to take into account for reflective elevation differences between the turbine and the particular sound receptor. This would affect the straight line distance between those 2 points over the sound is assumed by the model to travel. Models will typically